brace looks pretty ominous to see her walking around in crutches. Do you worry that, maybe she just can't come back this year?
I mean, every time someone has something that happens that's involving their knees, especially someone who, from high school on has had, some issues. You always worry, how long will it take? And I don't think everybody heals differently. I don't think anybody can definitively say, there's no surgery involved, so, we'll wait and see how she feels. And I wouldn't put too much stock in that brace. That's more of a just keep the weight off and give it the best chance to heal. Other than that, it's one of these. I don't know if you saw it happen. If you watched the video, you saw it happen. It's just, what can I say? Well, I mean, I don't think you sprain knees. I think what happens is, in every case, you either in Ice's case, you get dislocated patella. Most of the time it involves a ligament. And the worst possible scenario is when you tear one. And there's no tear, there's no, but there's enough concern that we need to let it heal. However that long it takes, everybody heals differently, There were some doctors last year that said Paige wouldn't play again for 4 months. And our doctors disagree with that. Paige was back way before that. So you really can't put a definitive number on how long. I think you just got to let the healing process take its course.
How much do you feel for a kid like that, just, hurting it in just a second being back?
It's been a series of things, one thing after another, going back to freshman year, and you really say to yourself, how much have we really seen of a 100% healthy easy play? It's been just a few times to how long she's been in college. And it's frustrating to see what she can do, and she is. And forget how much she means to us and what we're trying to do. It's just, if you're a basketball player, you love to play, and you're as good as she is. When you're not able to be on the court, it's gut wrenching in some ways, especially when you spend all that time rehabbing to come back for 2 games. Was it 2 games?
Geno, I gotta be honest. Usually when we talk about these things, we see you sort of eat this one, like it is what it is, we move on. But this one seems to hit you a little bit harder. Why is that?
I mean, they all hurt to a certain degree. I hate to say that, because of the last 2 years, we've become, almost immune to these things, because that's not the case. But I think it's difficult because it's not a one-time thing. You know, it's just something that it's piling on. It's adding one more thing to have to deal with for her, and that's frustrating obviously for her, and it's frustrating for us. But we've just tried to worry about what can we do that's within our control, and what can we do to fix whatever is broken. But there's just some things we can't do anything about. And our kids are, to be honest with you, our kids are tired. You take a look at our 5 starters. I mean, they're tired. They're physically tired. They're mentally tired, as anybody would be at this point in the season, having played that many minutes and with this, that constant, But somehow, some way, we find a way, and we'll just keep doing that.
Geno, you've kind of seen everything at this point in your career. I'm wondering, when you go through seasons, no matter how successful they are or are built to be, are coaches always kind of mindful of, you never know what's around the corner? I mean, I ask that because you guys have gone through some bad luck. The men's team has come back to earth a little bit. You just it was only a few weeks ago we were sitting here talking about it's the basketball capital of the world again.
Yeah, and that's one thing you learn if you're in this business long enough. Because I could probably say from 1985, 86, my first year here, till 97, I don't remember a kid getting hurt. So you start to become, you feel like you're invincible. Like, here's our team, and this is how it's going to be every day for 6 months. Because it's like that for so long. And then, the Shea thing in 1997, I didn't realize at the time that was kind of like payback for all the years when, we didn't have any issues. But you do learn. You just got to be willing to go on to the next thing with whatever you have. It's almost become like golf. You play 5 days a week if you could, and all 5 days you think you swing the same, but the ball goes 5 different directions. You can't understand why, and you just got to try to figure out, how do I play with what I have today? And this has become, what do we have today? Who's at practice today? What can we get done? Who's available for tomorrow's game? How do we win tomorrow's game?
Can you and your staff relate to anything Dan and his staff might be feeling? Like, you just get kind of caught in a cycle sometimes and trying to fight your way out of it.
Yeah. And again, I don't want to speak for them.
Yeah.
They certainly have enough experience to know what the deal is. They play in a league where every possession is a foul. So it's hard to look like the basketball team that you are. Big East always has a reputation of being a very physical league and this and that. Well, that's all well and good, but when you watch on TV, relative to some other, where they actually can play basketball, as opposed to, you have your choice every possession. Should I grab them, push them, punch them, tackle them? What should I do? Because you're going to do one of those things. and sometimes multiple of those things, and changes how your team reacts and how they play. But it's part of the growing process too, in that what's Danny's been here, this is fifth year? To go from where we were to where they were 4 weeks ago. In that amount of time, in today's world where people coming and going, it's pretty damn good. And I don't think anybody thought that it would just keep going in that direction without any sort of, comeback. And, I think you just remind yourself all the time. 4 weeks ago, we were 14-0. And maybe we weren't as good as 14-0. But we certainly aren't as bad as our last 6 games. That for coaches is a hard balancing act. It's hard as shit. Because when you're 14-0, your kids feel like play anybody. We'll play anybody. Anywhere, anytime. And just like that, you feel vulnerable. You feel, best word I can use. You just feel vulnerable. And there'll be a game, maybe this Sunday, where everything goes exactly the way they want it to go and everything pops. And that feeling comes back. They're not going to stay like this.
How many players are you counting on being available tomorrow? And with the 5 games in a row?
Players or people? I mean that in a funny way.
And
you know how many mothers are going to call me if you put this on the air?
And how
were you talking about my daughter?
And how will you adjust anything like maybe shorter, more intense practices like you would do tournament with the 5 games in 11 days? And how do you approach it? Yeah,
I think these next 2 weeks, these next 11 days are probably going to be the most intense, time sensitive. How much time you're on your feet, workload during games, how much recovery time do you have. This will be the toughest stretch of the season coming up. So how long are practices? Well, it's funny. I told him yesterday. It was like 3:30, and we had been going for like 20 minutes. Now maybe we've been going about half hour, 45 minutes max. It was 3:30. I said, if this was a long time ago, we practiced till 6 today, and we wouldn't take a break, and we would go so hard that it would be impossible for anybody to match that pace. So, but that's ancient history. Those days are gone. Those days are over. So our practices over the last however number of years have changed. And I thought it was an interesting comment by Stan Van Gundy, and I think Kevin Durant agreed with him when Stan said, used to practice really hard, we used to go long, people build up their bodies to do all that and could, last an 82-game season and la. And Kevin said, I agree. So maybe, all this data that you have and all this stuff that you have, maybe it's counterproductive. I don't know. But I think back then, people took time off too. People didn't have personal trainers. People didn't have, their own gym to work out in every day during the summer. They took time off. And they were ready to go when they came back in September. Man, I can't wait to play. And even when you gave them a day off, they would go over to Geyer Gym to find the game. Because they just had to play. Times have changed, I guess. But I would stand. I wonder sometimes. It's like Secretariat, right? If you remember the story, common practice was between the Preakness and the Belmont. You rest the horse because it's the longest race coming up. It's taxing on a 2-year-old, and so they tried to do that: jog them, walk them, day off, and he rebelled. And finally, the trainer said, "I got to tell you, this horse wants to run and wants to run hard," and that's how he trained. And you saw what happened. Now, maybe that's a case that doesn't matter, but there's something to be said for that. Some people need that. Like, you don't know who though, but I can't explain it. There's more precautions taken now to prevent injuries than ever in the history of college basketball. 15, 20 years ago, none of this was going on. Zero. All this data that you have, all these exercises, all these physiologists who can tell you, how much pressure is on the 5th metatarsal when you make this cut. They could tell you anything. How to jump, how to land, how to do it. They have every data you can imagine. We used to just go by what did it look like. So it's not that coaches and athletic trainers and strength and conditioning, nutritionists, like all this stuff that you have. It's not that they're, as a matter of fact, we're doing more for players than we've ever done in the history of the game. So how do you explain it?
So you get back to Carl's question, over the next, will you push them harder, or will you try to give them a little bit of a breather?
I could push them harder if I had 10 of them. And if I didn't like how hard this one was going, number 8 would come in and go harder. Now, if I don't like how hard this one's going, practice is over. Because that's it. That's all we got left in the tank. So, and I'll tell you the other thing. This team, unlike some teams I've had, this team has earned our trust. The coaching staff. We trust these guys. We trust that if we tell them we're practicing 15 minutes today, they'll go 15 minutes, they'll stay after and get some shots up, and then they'll play their asses off tomorrow for 40 minutes. Because that's what they've shown us all year long. So if I didn't trust them, I would maybe treat it differently. But because I trust them, and I know that if I give them time to recover, and if I give them time, they're not going to abuse it and come in and sleepwalk through a game.
Do you think it could help your team long term that some of these other players are getting to play now at the end of the year if you get AZ and everybody back?
Yeah. That's the plan, right?
Yeah.
Except I'm going with this might be what we have in March, right? So the actual tangible right now is we need Yana back, who hopefully tomorrow will be full contact. Hopefully. She's been practicing the last couple of days with no contact. So hopefully Yana's back. Well, not tomorrow's the game. Sunday maybe. That Amari can continue doing some things that gives us productive minutes. And Nash has been out a couple of days because I'm not sure whether they tested her for strep throat, for flu, for COVID. Lyme disease. Tested her for everything. She came up negative on everything, except she couldn't get out of bed. She was sick and tired. And she's at practice today. She says she feels better. So we need those 3 guys, Nesh, Amari, and Yana, to come in and add a little bit of stability, a little bit of maintain. They don't even have to come in and give us the lead or expand the lead. They just got to come in and be solid.
So it's 7 tonight.
So
So
Gianna is out.
So tomorrow we'll know at shoot around if Yana's going to go. And if she does, then it's 8. Which I won't know what to do with all that.
Is Nesh
Now, CD, how do I get all these guys in the game?
is Nesh gonna go?
Yeah.
You think? Okay.
Well, she's at practice today. You know.
And Caroline's still working back.
Yep.
Do you ever look at these, like Aubrey's pretty close to having already played as many minutes as she's played in her first 2 years.
Yeah.
I think Nika's pretty close. They talk about how, like, pitchers, that they try to limit how many innings young pitchers. Is that a concern, or is that more eye test that, gee, Aubrey looks really good?
That is, and that's why you have to cut things back. That you limit how many minutes they're actually on their feet in practice. And that games theoretically should be less stressful, even though they're stressful. And can we get them a couple minutes here and there? Can we extend the timeout here and there? That's what we're trying to find out. But wasn't a lot of blown elbows back in the day when guys threw 30 complete games. If you're a baseball fan, there's never been more done to prevent injuries to pitchers, and there's never been more pitchers that have Tommy John from high school to Major League Baseball. So, this shit you can't explain. You can't go see.
Clayton Kershaw has 25 complete games in his career. Clayton Kershaw's going to the Hall of Fame. Bob Gibson had 25 complete games in 1968.
Catfish threw 35 and 75.
Yep. He pitched all but, I think, 11 innings.
And they'll tell you, well, times were different then. Of course they were. But they didn't train like these guys train either. I mean, maybe players today should train on Budweiser and cheeseburgers.
Maybe they'll have a cigarette between the
Maybe they
bats.
should have a cigarette between, during the 7th inning stretch. But all this Gatorade, all these supplements in the Gatorade thing. Just electrolytes. Maybe a Bud Light in the clubhouse would do the trick. Like those guys.
Are you seeing Aubrey get to the point where she has a more consistent confidence? I mean, that's always been her.
Yeah, you know what's actually given, which is kind of, I don't know. You know what's giving Aubrey a lot of confidence? She knows she ain't coming out. So she could do like the weirdest thing in the world. And it's like, well, what are you going to do? Take me out? So she's just playing through, like the Seton Hall game, right? First 2 shots, I think, were air balls. Like, pull up, this goofy thing, that missed a layup or something. And then she just takes off and does what she does. So sometimes, that's what it takes to get a kid going, is knowing I'm going to play regardless. Now, it shouldn't take that. You should play like that all the time. But if you're already a kid that maybe your confidence isn't Diana Taurasi level, maybe you need that. So maybe she's getting exactly what she needed right now.
That was Caroline last year, wasn't it? In
Yeah.
a lot of ways.
Pretty much. Yeah. They just need a lot of minutes. Some players can come in and just blow up the game right away. Remember Shea in 97, right? Sveta when she came off the bench, Diana when she came off they come in and 3 minutes into the game, they just blew up the game completely. Some guys, the first 3 minutes, if you watch them play, you go, get that son of a bitch out. But if you leave them in another 5 minutes, phew. So how the hell do I know?
Going back to you trusting the players a lot more this season, at what point this year did you realize that you could let them? They were responsible enough for you to lead them along like that?
Well, 2 or 3 games into the season, because of our schedule and how hard we had to play to beat those teams, and how we played against Iowa after we got down 14. We came back feeling like I think we got something here. And let's see if we can hold on to it. And let's not ruin it on the practice floor. Let's keep the joy in the game. You can always tell how players feel and how practice was by how many stay after to shoot. Get some shots up. If practice is over and they're out the door before you even finish going together on three, then you know that was a bad day, man. They want no part of this place. But 15, 20 minutes later, they're still out here after practice working on their game. That's a good sign. And there's a lot of guys doing that. A lot of guys doing that.
Geno, is AJ going to be reassessed after a certain point? Is that like?
Yeah, she's got 2 weeks on this. She's got 2 weeks in this phase. No way bearing for 2 weeks. And then we'll see what the next thing is after 2 weeks.
Crutches for 2 weeks.
Yeah, crutches and that brace for 2 weeks. No, I should just say no weight bearing for 2 weeks.
How are his spirits?
Shitty. I tried to talk to her the morning after she got the report. And she texted me last night, Coach, I'm really, really sorry. I just had a bad day yesterday and I didn't feel like talking. And Asia's like the nicest kid in the world. Nicest kid in the world. So much for having two of the generational players, right? Paige and AZ together, coming here, Mantle and Maris, Blanchard and Davis.
They were going to keep you around.
Sue and Diana.
Anybody know? Blanchard and Davis? Anybody? Army's backfield. Heisman Trophy. So much for that, right? How many games have they played together? Not many.
Not
15.
I promise.
15.
15?
15.
That hurts my heart. I promise I won't write that about anybody else. How about that?
Right.
Don't break the curse. I won't write it about anyone else.
Oh, good.
Maggie and I were just discussing it. 15. And you've had 36, 15 out of 54 games.
15 out of 54 games. That the two of them have been on the court together. And how many of those 15 has she been 100%?
0.
7.
NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
Until when? Final game.
Geno, earlier, Aaliyah was talking about the leadership role that she's been taking on.
Who?
Aaliyah. She was talking about the leadership role that she's been taking on amid all the injuries. What have you seen from her as a mentor, that she's grown in over the past season?
I don't know how much of a talker she is in the locker room or off the court in any way. I just know that she's one of those that, by example, she's kind of letting everybody know this is what's expected. This is what I'm going to do every game. We had a long talk about it yesterday, her and I. Said, you're an All-American right now. If you think about it, she's on the All-American team. As was AZ after the first 4 or 5 games. So now you see all these double-doubles that Aaliyah's doing and what she's doing defensively, how she's shooting the ball. You say she's an All-American. How else could we sustain what we're doing up to this time? We had 2 post players almost averaging a double-double. Her and Jordan. I said, you've got to be dominant every night. Not just for the younger players' sake or for our sake, but for your sake of where you want to go. This is your junior year now. If you don't do it by now, it's not going to get done. If you're not there right now, it's not going to get done. And she's there. She's there. I know Maddie Siegrist is probably the conference player of the year because that son of a gun is damn good. And she has a huge impact on Villanova. And I think Aaliyah has that similar impact on our team.
how much of that is her staying out of foul trouble too? That's been a big development. for
Yeah,
her.
now she only fouls our guys. I think with maturity comes better decision making. And I think that's really been a big factor for her. She's in better shape. So I think when you're late to get to a spot, that's when the fouls come. She's quicker to the ball now, offensive rebounding wise. Just a lot of really cool stuff going on with her right now.
What was Caroline doing?
Caroline? Look at her. Sitting on the bench like, I'm the kid at the playground. I didn't get picked. It's a shame because, so many kids just play the game like you don't even know why they play. Then you got guys like her, Paige, Hazy, Ice. They live and breathe the game, man. The game is part of their oxygen. It's who they are.